G'day, g'day, my name's Alan Gamble. Welcome to another episode of Aussie Box Office Chart for weekend 17. Let's dive in, we've got a lot to get through. Starting with our top 5 for this weekend, obviously Michael takes the number 1 spot. Everyone expected it to. I didn't expect it to take it by that much. Opening with $7.9 million. Since it opened on the Wednesday, it's sitting at a total of $9.3 million. We will break down all of Michael's numbers after the top 10 in terms of how it stacks up against the other music biopics that have come out, but it's done really well. It is the second biggest opening of 2026 in Australia so far, but I'm keen to see what it does in weekend 2. But a great opening, irrefutable, can't argue the fact. Smashing opening for Michael. Sticking at number 2, surprisingly, is Project Hail Mary with another $1.8 million. Its 6th week in release, dropping 39% for a current total of $34.9 million. Dropping down to number 3 with a very steep drop, and we're going to see this with all the family-friendly animated movies, family movies, because school's back. The school holidays are over, the return to school drop-off is in effect. Super Mario Galaxy movie, with another $1.7 million, dropped 69% in its 4th week for a current total of $36.5 million. Lee Cronin's The Mummy stays at number 4, with another $580,000, dropping 42% in its 2nd week of release for a current total of $1.8 million. And rounding out the top 5 is The Magic Faraway Tree, with another $570,000, also dropping 60% in its 5th week of release for a current total of $9.2 million. Moving on to 6 through 10, the drama stays at number 6 with another $520,000, its 4th week in release, dropping 37% for a current total of $5.7 million. Hoppers at number 7 with another $380,000, its 5th week in release, dropping 65% with a current total of $9.2 million. Booth Bangala, on the other hand, with another $250,000, only dropping 33% in its 2nd week of release. Surprisingly good hold for an Indian film, for a current total of around $770,000. Goat, on the other hand, drops 70% with another $230,000, its 7th week in release, return to school drop right there, for a current total of $11.7 million. And rounding out the top 10 with $141,000, is Exit 8. I was going to look at the video game charts as we did just recently, but obviously opening that small didn't really move the needle on that chart. Small indie horror movie based on a very small indie horror game. We're not going to see Mario numbers from it. So obviously the first thing we need to look at is the top 5 openings of 2026, as this has been firmly updated, with Michael entering this chart at number 2 with its $7.9 million, wasn't quite able to catch a Super Mario Galaxy movie with its $8.4 million, but did open larger than Project Hail Mary with its $6.1 million, Wuthering Heights with its $6 million, and Scream 7 with its $3.5 million. Duranda the Revenge with its $3.5 million opening is out of the chart. So, music biopics. Michael, this is the top story of the week. Here is every music biopic going back as far as I could, now that I've got some new historical data. We go all the way back to 1985. This is in a timeline chart, but we will stack highest to lowest so you can see how everything ranks up just in a second. But Amadeus and La Bamba and What's Love Got to Do with It in 85, 87 and 93. The release structure for releasing movies back then was very, very different. They opened in a very limited number of screens and then expanded out. Shine in 96 opened to $950,000. The Pianist to $400,000. 8 Mile opened to $5.3 million back in 2003. Keep that one in mind for later. We have Ray and Walk the Line, La Vie en Rose, Notorious, The Runaways, Jersey Boys, all doing some okay business. Then we got Straight Outta Compton in 2015 that opened to $4.5 million. And then in 2018, we got Bohemian Rhapsody, opened to $6.8 million. I Can Only Imagine and Rocketman, Respect, Elvis in 2022 that opened to $6.7 million. And then we had an absolute slate of them. Bob Marley, One Love in 2024, A Complete Unknown in 2024, Better Man in 2024, Springfield, Deliver Me From Nowhere in 2025, Song Sung Blue in 2026, I Can Only Imagine 2 in 2026, The Moment in 2026, and now Michael in 2026, opening to $7.9 million. Let's sort this high to low. And it's quite clear that Michael is the highest opening music biopic in Australian history at the Aussie box office. $7.9 million puts it above the two previous big contenders of Bohemian Rhapsody and Elvis. Although 8 Mile, 2003, and it's in 4th place. Then we had Straight Outta Compton, Rocket Man, Walk the Line, and Song Sung Blue. Let's adjust for inflation because I think you know what's going to happen. That's right, Michael dips down on the chart. As expected, it is now behind Bohemian Rhapsody that has an adjusted $8.5 million opening in 2018 and 8 Mile in 2003, which has an adjusted $9.6 million opening. That opened so big. That was peak Eminem right at his prime. Taking an updated look at the battle for the highest grossing video game movie in Australia, I think it's probably going to be the last time we look at this chart because the trend is quite clear. Super Mario Galaxy movie continues to fall off the pace of both the original Super Mario Bros. Movie from 2022 and a Minecraft movie from last year. But it is still safely the 3rd highest video game movie of all time in Australia, with its already $36.5 million. It's already claimed 3rd spot. It's not getting any higher because to do that, it would need to catch a Super Mario Bros. Movie. And you can see it's not doing that. Okay, time for a change. We're going to be doing something this year that I've wanted to do for years, but I didn't have this channel, or I forgot about it and left it until it was too late. But Dan Murrells, and link will be in the description to his channel if you're not familiar. It's a great channel. I've been watching him for years, and I'll probably put a card up the top somewhere. But he does a summer box office prediction game. I'm doing it for the Australian box office, and when we use the term summer box office season, we obviously mean the American summer blockbuster season because it goes from the 1st of May to the 1st of August. So anything released in that time frame counts for this list. We're trying to predict what finishes in the top 10 for the summer box office season and which positions they finish in. Seems like a lot of fun, so there'll be 1 point per correct pick in the top 10, -1 for every incorrect pick in the top 10. Half a point for a correct placement in the top 10, and then 0.1 deduction per movie per spot that it's outside its predicted spot. So if I pick a movie to be number 1 and it's number 5, I lose 0.5 of a point. So here is the countdown of my predictions for what will be the top summer box office season in the Australian box office. I'll be keeping track of it, but I want it on the record before the 1st of May. So here we go. Feel free to play along at home as well. Put them in the comments, jot it down somewhere, post it somewhere. As long as you've got it in writing, it counts. Starting with my number 10, Scary Movie 6 that releases on June 4th. I'm not saying these are the best movies of the summer box office season. I'm saying these are the ones that are going to make the most money. At number 9, The Death of Robin Hood that releases on June 18th. Strange pick, but Robin Hood movies have a history of doing pretty well in Australia, and I think it might be able to sneak into the top 10. At number 8, we have Disclosure Day that releases on June 11th. Obviously, a new big Steven Spielberg can get a lot of people in the door, but do people know it's a Steven Spielberg? Are people going to recognize it? It's a new IP. It could go either way. This could be way off and it could be way higher, or it could be way lower because people just don't show up. At number 7, Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and Grogu. It's a Star Wars movie. It's going to make heaps of money, right? People are cooled on Star Wars a lot. And peak The Mandalorian popularity was back in 2019. So I'm like, is it relevant? Is it gonna get people? People are gonna go see it, but I just don't see the big mass appeal for this movie. I'll probably go and see it, but I might be the only one. At number 6, Supergirl, June 25th. Putting it here because Superman ended up at around position number 6 last year. And Supergirl, not as popular as Superman, obviously, but personally, I was always more excited for this because the comic that this movie is based on is actually really good. So I'm very, very keen. That might be some personal bias creeping in moving it as high as it is, but I think number 6 is a safe spot for it. Number 5, The Minions and Monsters, June 25th. It's a Minions movie. They always do pretty well, but never as well as the US domestic or the international markets. Australians don't love the Minions as much as the rest of the world, and of that I am very proud of us, because I hate them. At number 4, The Odyssey, the new big Nolan movie, July 16th. This could go much higher, but I'm like, it's historical action. Gladiator 2 didn't do insane numbers. It is still a Nolan though, so it's going at number 4 for me. At number 3, Spider-Man, Brand New Day, releasing July 30th. Spider-Man movies. Everyone loves Spider-Man movies. The last Spider-Man movie, obviously, did insane numbers, and it seems to be fairly immune to the Marvel curse that's happening, where even Spider-Man movies, even the middling Spider-Man movies, still do really pretty well. Like, really good. But not as good as our number 2 pick, Moana, the live-action remake. July 8th. Now, the reason it's number 2 and not number 1 is I think people might be cooling on Moana a little bit. We had Moana 2, which did good numbers, but the reception wasn't good. And we've had a lot of live-action Disney remakes, some which do really, really well, and others which have not done so well. So I'm tempering expectations, but this could easily be the number 1 movie of the summer box office season. Easily. But my number 1 pick, Toy Story 5, June 18th. I've just got a feeling Toy Story movies have always done very, very well in Australia. And cashing in on nostalgia of like Lilo and Stitch and stuff that just happened, families will go out because the entire family knows these movies. This one's bringing in that digital element which will relate with a lot of kids and a lot of parents that have kids with phones and tablets and all that kind of stuff. I think this is going to be number 1, hence why it's in the number 1 spot. But overall, this is what my top 10 looks like. It is set in stone, and we will be tracking it alongside what is currently the top 10 in the summer box office season in a separate chart that we'll be including as things happen through the summer season. But this is my chart. Feel free to note yours down in the comments below, or post them on social media, or wherever you want to do them. Maybe make a Letterboxd list. You can follow me on Letterboxd. It is in the description below. But that is my summer predictions. Jumping across to the top 10 for 2026. So this is the top 10 of everything released in calendar year 2026. Not a lot of changes, but a few at the back end. Super Mario Galaxy movie stays at number 1 with its $36.3 million. Project Hail Mary with $34.9 stays at number 2. Wuthering Heights stays at number 3 with its $20.3 million. Song Sung Blue with $12.2 million stays at number 4. And Goat stays at number 5 with $11.7 million. Marty Supreme holds on to number 6 for now with its $9.7 million. Michael enters the chart at number 7 with its $9.3 million. That knocks Hoppers down to number 8 with $9.2 million. The Magic Faraway Tree down to number 9 with $9.2 million. And Arunda the Revenge goes down to number 10 with $8.2 million. Obviously, a new thing in the chart means something got knocked out, and Scream 7 is out of the domestic top 10 at the Aussie box office for 2026. Moving on to upcoming releases. Wide releases on the 30th of April 2026. The Devil Wears Prada 2, the legacy sequel to the 2006 original. Once again, directed by David Frankel and starring Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt, and Stanley Tucci. How will that do? I'll be curious to find out, and we'll compare it next week. We also have It's Never Over, Jeff Buckley, a music documentary on the titular Jeff Buckley, directed by Amy J. Berg. We also have Hokum, a horror mystery written and directed by Damien McCarthy, starring Adam Scott, Peter Coonan, and David Wilmot. In limited release, so check your smaller and indie cinemas. We have Seven Snipers, a new Australian set action thriller from director Sandra Sakawaris, starring Tim Roth, Radha Mitchell, and Annabelle Wolfe. I will be checking that one out this weekend. It sounds kind of neat. We also have Wolfram, another Australian movie. This one, a more Western drama set in the 1930s colonial frontier, where two criminals arrive at a small mining town. It's directed by Warwick Thornton and starring Deborah Mailman, Thomas M. Wright, and Pedro Jackson. Moving on to streaming releases, we have Swapped, a new animated family movie from director Nathan Greeno, starring Michael B. Jordan, Juno Temple, and Tracy Morgan. It's basically a body swap movie, but between two different animals. And you can catch it on Netflix on the 1st of May. We also have Man on Fire, a TV series adaptation of the 2004 movie of the same name, created by Kyle Killen, the creator of the Halo adaptations, so we will see. It's starring Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Billy Boulette, and Alice Braga, and it can be found on Netflix on April 30th. We also have Goldland, a new Korean crime drama miniseries on Disney+, starring Park Bo-young, Kim Sung-cheol, and Lee Hyun-wook. It can be caught on April 29th. And in returning series, The Gruen Transfer, aka Gruen, returns for its season 18 on April 29th on the ABC, returning once again. So, up to 6 movies for this week's movie challenge, thanks to a rainy weekend. Let's get into what I watched. First up was a 2026 catch-up movie of Cold Storage, directed by Johnny Campbell and starring Joe Keery, Georgina Campbell, and Liam Neeson. It's about a mutating, highly contagious fungus that's trying to escape from an old, failing government storage facility that's been long abandoned. This was a fun little sci-fi, mostly bottle movie, and with an opening set in Australia, which on this channel we love to see. Nothing that's going to blow anyone's socks off, but it was a fun, good time about a clever fungus trying to take over the world. Very silly, but, a good time. Next up was a rewatch of 2018's Ocean's 11, directed by Gary Ross and starring, like all Ocean's movies, a stacked cast. This time, Sandra Bullock, Cate Blanchett, Anne Hathaway, Sarah Paulson, Mindy Kaling, and Awkwafina, Rihanna, and Helena Bonham Carter. Danny Ocean's sister gets out of prison after 5 years after being set up by a former partner and plans a new heist as well as maybe a little revenge. I wanted to rewatch this one as I remember being fairly mixed on it when I first watched it, but while it doesn't match the highs of 11 and 13, it's still a fun ride with a great cast and some good old-fashioned heist action. Next up was a rewatch of a movie I've seen many times before, but never since I started logging movies on Letterboxd in 2013, 1997's Volcano, directed by Mick Jackson and starring Tommy Lee Jones, Anne Hesh, Gabby Hoffman, and Don Cheadle. An earthquake rocks LA only to not be the only geological event taking place when a volcano starts to form under the city. This is one of those terrible movies that I just love. I grew up with it, grew up with all the 90s disaster movies, and this is one of the key ones, aka the volcano that solves racism. Yep, if you have not watched it, you're in for a treat, but it's never a movie I would call good, but it's a real dumb fun time. Moving on to another rewatch, this one I think was the beginning of the end of the classic 90s disaster movie, and the start of the mass CGI, full Earth being wiped out movies that were never quite as good. I'm talking about 2004's The Day After Tomorrow, directed by Roland Emmerich and starring Dennis Quaid, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Emily Rossum. When the North Atlantic current starts to fail, it leads to massive climate shift that spirals out of control faster than anyone thought possible, leading to massive extreme weather events all around the planet. As I said, this was just the tip of the iceberg of what disaster movies would turn into for the next 20 odd years. And I think they're just plain straight up not as good as the smaller scale disaster movies that we got in the 90s, where the only impact might be a small town or a city or smaller stakes that are still important to the people involved, not, oh no, the entire world is going to end. Speaking of small scale disaster movies, the next was a rewatch of a modern movie starting to reverse that trend with 2024's Twisters, directed by Lee Isaac Chung and starring Daisy Edgar Jones, Glenn Powell, and Anthony Ramos. A legacy sequel that's mostly standalone to its 1996 original. A pair of new crews of storm chasers go head to head as they look for ways to study or prevent tornadoes. This was a fun rewatch, and while it doesn't compare to the 1996 original in terms of charisma or soundtrack, it's still a pretty fun legacy sequel that's better than a lot of legacy sequels we get nowadays. Finally was another 2026 release with Apex, directed by Baltazar Kumakur, starring Charlize Theron and Taron Egerton. A woman travels to Australia to explore after a climbing disaster, but finds herself in a game of cat and mouse with a killer. Apex was a fairly standard survival hunter-killer type fare, but both leads bring enough to their roles that they cruise along without too many issues. Egerton clearly enjoying playing something a little bit more unhinged than usual for him, but it was fine. I wouldn't call it great, but it was a fine enough time if you just want to put something on, as is common with a lot of Netflix movies. This week's Cinechums movie challenge is Korean movies. So obviously Korean movies is the big easy one, but writing, starring or directed by someone, so we've got a few names there. Filmed or set in Korea is another one, and remakes or originals of Korean movies that have been remade. A few people have kicked it off with like K-pop Demon Hunters or No Other Choice, great movie. We've also got The Great Flood, The Magnificent Seven, A Taxi Driver, which I watched recently, Cloud Atlas, which I watched not long ago, Lady Vengeance, which I watched not long ago. I've been watching a lot of Korean movies. Let's dive into my shortlist. My shortlist consists of a few rewatches like K-pop Demon Hunters or Decision to Leave. We've got Concrete Utopia, we've got Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Burning, Old Boy, The Train to Busan. We've got the Spider-Verse movies or The Witch. We'll see how we go. That is it for me this week. Tune in next week where we will check how The Devil Wears Prada 2 does compared to the original, and we'll be looking at the week 2 drop-off of Michael, because while it has done massive numbers, the reviews, not so good. So we'll see how that stacks up. Maybe it will hold really well. Music biopics often do, but bad reviews often temper that and people go, I'll wait for streaming. But I'll also be catching 7 Snipers, so maybe if it makes the top 10 I can talk about it and tell you if it's any good or if you can skip it. But that's it for me. Have a good one. Watch more movies. Bye.